All right, we are officially underway. What we generally, for those that are new to this meeting, it's pretty loose. You can kind of bring what you want to talk about, and we just kind of go and talk through it and give advice and as best as we can. Today, I think what we're going to start with is Lisette wrote an article and has some insight into some consortial features that are coming in the new release. So we definitely want, and she's linked to that. So we definitely want to talk about some of those, but there should be ample time to get to other questions that you have. And I know, yeah, Kris has already brought up one, the ILL piece. So we'll definitely get to that as soon as Lisette's done. But I just want to turn over to Lisette to talk about some of these new features because I'm very curious, even though I read the article.
Hi, thanks for having me. Oh yeah, the Juliet in the chat said it's been harder to find blog posts since we rearranged the learn section. Yeah, we're talking about ways to make it easier to find what you're looking for. Searching in the education section, like if you, here, 1 second. I can share my screen. Let's see. Like if you just go to bywatersolutions.com/education, a search box comes up that works pretty well. Well, we're figuring out a better system for the learn environment, especially around upgrades, because we've posted so many blogs in the last couple of weeks with all the upgrade notes. And then like also Monday minutes and stuff get lost or get posted in here. The bottom of each post, I should have kept sharing my screen. The bottom of each post does have tags. And so like all the 20 to 11 have the 20 to 11 tag. So you can see just the newest stuff. Things like that can be very helpful. But there are other things that will also affect Consortia, but these were the enhancements and bug fixes that specifically were going to affect multi-branch systems and not like single branch locations or most branches with independent branches turned on. So one of the biggest things is this new allowing patrons to change the pickup location for non-waiting holds, which includes also while it's in transit. So if it's pending, in transit, or suspended from the OPAC, you can allow them, well, there's a system preference, OPAC allow user to change branch, where you can say, we do or don't want to let them change their pickup location during any of these settings or statuses. And then if you turn it on, you can see it adds this new change link for the pickup location. And if you don't have it turned on for both suspended and in transit, like it would show just for the suspended, but not for the in transit. Because right now patrons can't change, staff can change pickup locations for patrons, but patrons haven't ever been able to change their own. So like that's a big thing. I know it's something we get asked about a lot. Does anyone have any questions about this feature in particular?
Hi, Lisette. Is that only for when you're using the KOHA OPAC? Because we have the Aspen overlay on ours.
Yeah, Aspen, they are working. I'm pretty sure that they're hoping by the time that that most of the libraries go live in June. I think there's supposed to be something in place for this, if it's not already. Michelle might know. You guys were early adopter, and you have. Did you guys turn this on?
We did. I will check right now to see what it looks like.
Okay. Sounds good. Because I know we've talked a lot about how this was going to work with KOHA and Aspen, and I just can't remember if it is already fixed or if they're planning on having it fixed by like in the June release. Another nice thing is copying notices. If a library already has a branch specific notice, before you couldn't copy it because it would say, oh, I already have this, but now you can copy it and overwrite the old notice which is especially helpful. Like the library that I used to work at, we had multiple smaller branch systems within our 48 library consortium. So I had to go in and like copy paste into each one in all the things whenever I updated them for our 7 branches. But now you can just copy the notice to the new, whichever branch you want it to go to, which just will reduce your clicks some. There was a Monday minutes on this one, but there was a new library drop-down search function in the staff interface, which also, like, if you haven't had a look at the staff interface, you might want to check out the demo site. It's very different from 2105. 2205? What year is this? Sometimes it's hard to remember, but there's a new system preference, internet catalog search pull down. What do you see on my screen right now?
You see your, yeah, what you want us to see, what you're talking about.
So on the search the catalog, there's this new drop down, and that's helpful. If you want to just look at like what a specific branch has, you don't have to do it in the advanced search now. So again, fewer clicks if that's a feature that you're using. This is a big one. We get a lot of tickets about this. If you have a system preference or a shelving location that's only limited to some branches, if someone who is from a different branch that doesn't have that specific shelving location goes in and edits the item, it blanks it out because it says, oh, you can't do that. So it unselects it. And so now KOHA checks and says, oh, it already has this. This user can't add this, but we're not going to blank it out unless they go and actually change that. So that's really helpful if you use a lot of like authorized values or like patron attributes is one that this happened with a lot. That's not going to be an issue anymore. Some of this is just like the home or holding branch sometimes didn't check properly. So sometimes in certain situations when books were renewed, they got the wrong renewal date. It seems like it mostly didn't happen much anymore. It used to happen a lot more. And then I think they fixed that. It fixed a lot of the instances, but there were a couple places where like if a very specific set of events happened, it still might renew to the wrong item or the wrong location's rules. Oh yeah, cert control returns branch. So is a new system preference that works similarly to like the cert control and the reserves control system preferences, where return policies used to always use the home library rule, but now they can set it differently for home holding or logged in library. So if maybe like you want to have it set up so that one library always returns books because they're smaller and they don't have the space to keep books that come in on hold on like a floating collection, but maybe the big libraries do have the space to keep things, and so they do, or something. That's my best idea so far for the use case for different options at different branches. Oh yeah, the hold pickup location, you can set it to default to the item home branch, or yeah, so there's a new system preference. I don't remember what all the options are, so we're gonna have a look. So logged in library, items holding library, or items home library are the defaults. So like right now, the default is always the logged in library, but it does now give you the option of changing it if there's an item level hold, to change it to like have it default to the items home library instead. So another new system preference. Okay, Michelle did see the option to change pickup location for items that were in transit on the Aspen side. So that is already pushed. If you use the spine label creator, the quick spine label printer, there's some attributes now, so you can use CSS. So if you want to like format it differently for different branches, that's an option now. And let's see. Oh yeah, in some places, and this one was not, again, one of those inconsistent bugs where sometimes it would come up and work fine, and sometimes it would be like, oh, why does this not show that it's in transit? But now it will always have that status in transit from East Branch to North Branch or whatever in all instances instead of just most instances. And then another nice thing is this, the pending transfers, if you use the stock rotation, especially, that's the only use case that I remember that uses pending transfers. The stock rotation function that now shows in the status. So if you're looking at the record, you'll see like, oh, that has a rotation on it. Let's go ahead and send it. And these are just the system preferences for those. And those are like the main consortia related specific things. And also, this is just like a jQuery thing that Lucas did, but we know a lot of libraries will have this bar change color depending on what branch you're at, or they had that in the old one. And so Lucas has written some jQuery that works with the new system preference or the new look of the staff client.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions on any of that for Lisette? I know a fair number of those features don't necessarily apply to our consortia, which is kind of the way that this goes sometimes. But there are other features that we're really excited about at the upgrade. All right, let's talk a little bit about the interlibrary loan module. Kris, you wanted to get into that.
Thank you. I put my questions and I'm going to put them in the chat so we can talk about.
Oh, here we go. You were ready to go.
Yep, ready to go.
What would it take to create a link plus type easy interface within KOHA? Could we limit to what catalogs we wanted to show? For example, limit to Salinas. Okay, so only have some of the branches.
Yeah, well, what it is we want to do a joint ILL. We don't have a consortium with these libraries at all. We just want to do a joint ILL. That's the for access. And that's the only way we have access. And so we're looking to see what it would take to, because we have some libraries around us that also have KOHA, and we're talking about having a way for us to have a joint ILL with them. And so we're wondering what it would take to do it. If there, what kind of development fees should we be expecting? Is there ongoing fees? Any other requirements we're not thinking of? And has anybody ever done this and can tell us the pros and cons of having done it?
I can give you a little sense of our experience. So the interlibrary loan module is fairly new, first of all. So I would say it's pretty raw.
Okay.
So there is probably going to have to be some development to get things locked in the way you want. We looked at doing this with while most KOHA libraries in Colorado are part of our consortium, there's a couple that aren't. And so we looked at setting something up a couple of years ago with Pueblo, and we just kind of didn't really have a lot of time to look at the project. And every time we went to do some testing, there was gaps in between when people were doing stuff. So we kind of lost track of where we were, but it did seem doable. I think my concern at the time was how some of these features related to consortia Like it was really good if you had like a main branch like Pueblo has, where
Okay.
everything gets routed through.
Okay.
But less good if it was more decentralized like our consortia. But I do remember talking to Nick Clements, one of the developers, and saying that he was pretty sure that they could do some workaround stuff through jQuery or something like that that could
Okay.
meet our needs. We just never got to that stage.
Okay.
So I think it's all theoretically possible. We just
Okay.
never really proceeded with it. We do also use the interlibrary loan to hook up with our state interlibrary loan system. And that's a
Okay.
little bit different because it's like a plugin that's a little bit more specialized that
Okay.
uses the existing module and then connects it to the InReach software. So that's our current experience with that. And that's so there's kind of like lots of different, I think there's a lot of possibility is what I would say from my experience. I would be very interested in, as you talk through this with and try to get things set up. I know Bywater put together a couple videos and stuff a while ago, so they might have some stuff to share with you. But
Okay.
if you're actually doing some testing, getting it set up, and you're finding different developments, that could be something I know our organization in Pueblo might want to take a look at, because we would love to be able to share with them directly as well. We just never really got around to going through all the testing that we needed to do. So
Okay.
that's my whole thing. I don't know if anybody else has any ideas.
Yeah, we've talked about this in Kansas as well, because we have 4 consortia in Kansas that are using KOHA. So we've talked about koha ILL. We've got it set up on a few of our test servers, and we ran into the same thing that Bob is talking about. Like it's not tailored to consortia that are decentralized yet.
Okay.
It's like it wants to send any request to one place, and then you'd have to reroute it from there. And what we really want to get it to a point where it's like this level of ILL is just like working in KOHA, where you like check
Right.
it in, triggers the whole, it goes to the right library, and they can confirm it on their end. And it's not there yet. It needs development. And then where we got bogged down was more sort of the outside of KOHA stuff. Like if we're doing this, then are we taking away from the state system for ILL? Should we really be adding another layer of complexity to ILL in Kansas? So we've also talked about developing a back end, or working with agent, because that's our statewide ILL, and developing a back end that interfaces with KOHA, so that we're still using the statewide system, but we don't have to go through the clunkiness of using their product. We can do it within KOHA. So we are also stagnating on this issue, but we do have a meeting in a couple of weeks that I'm hoping we can maybe pick it back up and talk about developing something. But it does have a lot of the pieces in place already that you need. I mean, so one of your questions is like, could you limit catalogs? So if you're using KOHA to KOHA ILL, you're basically just talking to another KOHA installation via Z3950. So if they're set up as a Z target, you're searching their catalog within your staff interface, placing a request. That request gets sent to their catalog for filling, and then that's kind of where it breaks down at that point, where it needs to be a little more fleshed out, I think.
Okay, well, that's very helpful.
I know what we're doing for our participation in the statewide service with this is it does want to send it to one central location, but we've pulled a different courier code out of our notices into the notice. So even though it says it's like transferring to like our office, which is not a library, it is actually the thing that prints actually has the right destination on it. So we've been able to do that with some template tools kit stuff that Lucas has worked with us on, and so that is what makes it work currently for us. But yeah, it would be ideal if it actually was a little bit smarter about that, and I'm not quite sure. the best pathway to do it because those systems aren't in KOHA in that case. But in your case, when you're doing direct KOHA to KOHA ILL, it might be easier to accomplish that. So
Okay.
Yeah,
could be
depending
a
on
lot of
how you
workarounds. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Lisette.
depending on how you're gonna wanna send materials between yourselves and the other California libraries, that might change how you want your workflow to go. Like if you find that you're, as a whole, you're sending a lot of items to slow or whatever, you might find that you do want to put it all go into one branch, depending on how you're transporting outside of your organization. And I put a couple links in the chat that Kelly and Jesse made here about the KOHA to KOHA ILL plugin, both like a Monday Minutes and also a deeper dive blog post.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
you might want to talk to Charlie at Slow, because they are using, they this year started using this plugin with Santa Barbara.
Okay.
So she's got a lot of experience with that, and they also have multiple branches. So she might have some insight for you.
Okay. Thank you.
I could tell you that the one contribution we've made so far is there was the way that they were loading transactions to the ILL page was loading every single transaction. And so over time, as that builds up, it was taking longer and longer for that to load. But the
Mhm.
next, the 2211, it's been backported to where that's going to load a lot quicker. So at least that little piece is fixed.
Okay. Well, thank you. All this is very useful.
Yeah, definitely let us know how, if you actually get to a testing phase, let us know how it goes. I'm super curious to see what ideas you come up with.
Yeah, I don't, I'll pass this on to my director. If it's pretty raw, we may want to wait because I know how long it takes for them to get the developments up, because we've had some modifications done and we're still waiting on those. And I know there's a big line of development, so it may be
Sure.
years before this gets done. So definitely we'll talk to Charlie, and because that plugin sounds like they may have a central branch. If they're using it for that, may have one branch as a central location, possibly.
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you. Ray, did you have any questions?
No, I just, so pretty much you guys are still using OCLC or Red River to ILL between libraries?
For us, we use a state system, and we're
Okay.
using Autographics as our state system.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe that's something that we might want to research over here, to see if we can have something similar to that. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I mentioned our state system, the software is InReach is what it's called. Most of our transactions, because of the size of our consortium, are within our consortium. So, but I can see if you're particularly in a place like California, there's a lot of opportunity for smaller consortium, just like with Kansas, to meet up and even increase the availability of things.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else on this before we move on? Okay, I'll just open it up to what other questions. I know, Michelle, that Eileen had sent me a bug she wanted to talk about. Did you want to discuss that one?
I need to pull it up. I forgot.
I've got it linked.
Oh, okay.
If I can find it, hold on. Yeah, there it is. I'll put it in the chat here.
Which one is this?
This is,
Oh, yes, that we'd like to be able to limit access to reports or let the libraries run just specific reports. That's so they're not running like a big bib list during the day and then taking up all the resources and stuff and making the system slower. So this is one that I think Andrew just put in the other day. So yeah, we would like some support on this and see if anyone else thought it was a good idea in a consortia.
Yeah, so as always, a good way to get attention, there's a lot of ways to do it, but the lowest hanging fruit you can do if you like a bug like this is just comment on it and say, we like this. That's, you know, there's obviously things you can do to, you know, talk about paying money and things like that, but the very if you're not wanting to go through that whole process and you just like something, I do recommend that you just comment on it, and that does indicate to developers in the community that this is wanted and increases the likelihood that somebody might take it and run with it.
Michelle, do you have somebody at your library or in your system that works with jQuery at all?
No.
Okay, because I mean it's probably very doable. I've limited access to certain things via jQuery. I mean, you can see what library is logged in, and if you kept reports on certain tabs for specific libraries, you could say, you know, limit them to a specific tab in the reports, or, you know, deny them access to certain tabs in the reports via jQuery. So it's doable, even though this isn't a patch yet. There are things that could be done in the interim.
Awesome. Okay. I thought I saw something about that that Andrew in Slack was talking about. So that is perfect. All right. Even though we don't do any jQuery, I don't know. I tried my first the other day with in 2211 with the search interface. You can search by keyword, and then you can search by libraries, and then you can have the box pop out or the box in the single line. And I tried to do Lucas's jQuery and put that in, and it worked, but apparently it scrunches the search box so small for smaller screens that we can't use it anymore. So that was my failed attempt at jQuery. It didn't work out, but I can try. I will try. I'm always down for trying.
And are you a supported system through Bywater?
Yes.
You might put in a request to see if somebody is willing to tinker with that jQuery for you to make that modification. That might be something that they could do, but you know, if not, you could always ask in the community if somebody has something that might be able to limit reports. Somebody might have something already made.
Great. Thank you.
So you can limit by branch using the report grouping and subgrouping, right? I mean, that gives you some limitation.
I think you could still see all reports though, right?
I don't think it limits functionality.
It just does it just remove the tab options? Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, you could have tabs that only show up, but it doesn't actually remove the reports. This is when we, a little bit over a year ago, we added 22 Department of Corrections libraries, and they have high security needs. And this was one of the big deal breakers on just moving them directly into our system. So we've actually set them up on a different server, which had a lot of other benefits because they just function differently. So that ended up being the right decision anyway. But I do think long term there is, having the ability to get data on patrons from libraries you don't belong to is not ideal. So I will be also commenting on this bug because I do think it's something we'd like to see. All right, what other questions do people have, concerns, things that they're dealing with in their libraries?
A question. Does any of you all use unique collections? I'm going to be setting that up, and there's a module that will, I guess, help with that process. They told me about it. But what am I, if anyone's gone through the setup process before, what am I going to encounter? Give me a heads up.
It shouldn't be too bad. We have a few libraries that use it. So the main thing that I remember when I set it up, and maybe they have a more efficient way to do that, is I just got on a Zoom session with somebody from Unique, and they had a general report, SQL report that they sent over, and then we honed it in for what each particular library needed. So there's a few different reports. One that does like a sync report, and that goes there'll need to be a cron job that Bywater will set up to send to Unique management, and then there'll be a report for any individual branches that meet their parameters that need to be set up, that will then be emailed to those libraries. And so the idea with the report is it will show any patrons that are qualified to be sent to collections, and then they'll be marked in collections. And usually I think what will happen is they'll turn that sort 1 in, or sort 2 in the patron record. You'll use a little jQuery to make that say it's like a unique management thing instead of the sort, and then you just create like a drop-down menu in the authorized values that you could mark somebody into collections using that. So that may sound like a whole lot, but you should be able to have Bywater and Unique kind of walk you through each step of what needs to be done.
Okay. On a like daily basis, is there any, because I'm going to be running this whole show. I mean, on a daily basis, is there extra things that I'm going to have, extra steps I'm going to have to do, or is it all automated?
It's not automated. So when you get the report, you can either run the report or get it emailed to you. But you would have to go into patron accounts and mark them in collections, and then send to Unique the list of patrons that are now in collections.
Okay.
So we have our setup, like we also have
automatically.
Unique, and we have our setup automatically doing it when it goes to lost. So when an item goes to lost, Unique will get that report, and I don't have to worry about it after that. But if somebody contests the fine and say, what we do is they will email us and say, or send us a fax, or however you want it delivered. I ask them to have it emailed now, to go into our dashboard, and we will see if a person says, if they contest it. And at that point, we have to decide if we're going to still go through with it or not, if somebody contests.
Okay.
But at that point, that's all we're seeing really is we'll see the reports of what they've done now, and any action I have to make now is only if somebody contests it.
Okay. And that makes sense, because what you're talking about is a little different than our libraries have set up, where they're looking at particular thresholds and then they're wanting to make a decision, whereas you're just doing it anytime something's lost. So that makes sense. So I guess it kind of depends on what your setup is that might inform how much work you have to do.
Well,
Okay.
lost and above our threshold, because we do have a threshold, when things go to Unique. So those two things together set up work for us.
Our library wanted to give people an extra length of time between when they went lost and when it goes to Unique. So we run our report 30 days after our staff marks something as lost. And it does, I have a staff member runs actually we have the report emailed to us, and then they do the updates on the patrons each day. And then once a week, you do have to send an update that is a bigger update. We do that on Fridays. And one of the things we found you have to take into consideration is if you charge fines and you don't want those to go, you kind of have to figure out what limits you want to set. Because our report didn't really phase out fines versus fines for lost materials versus overdue fines. Once we got rid of overdue fines, we didn't have to worry about that anymore. But that was a consideration. And then you also have to consider that what you want them to do with youth accounts and how to give them guarantor information for that. Which,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
I can add that I've had headaches with this because we predate this plugin and I didn't know the plugin existed. So I have a question for people using the plugin. Is it branch limited? Like, I only have 2 libraries using collections in my consortium. I haven't looked at it at all.
Can't remember because we started before the plugin as well. And that's because we're the only one in our consortia who does it. And so I'm not sure.
So I guess for us, the things that we ran into trouble with, we initially the report that the Unique wrote wasn't good for us. So we've rewritten it several times. We also have this situation because we are a consortium where we don't want to send fines or lost charges that are owed on other libraries' books. So we do a lot of like in between interference on the Unique stuff. And it has been sort of clunky for us, but I'm encouraged that there is a plugin now because it does sound like that this could be a little more streamlined and things may have been hashed out a little more. So I'm gonna definitely look into that more and see if we can make the process easier for my people with it.
It looks like the plugin can be set up by patron category code. So that might be a way to do it for specific branches if you only use that branch's patron categories.
Now Jason has to create new categories and then batch change a bunch of patrons.
Thanks.
And then redo all the circles.
I'd rather just not use Unique at all. It does work though. I mean, we found that like my libraries, one of them is here and we charge fines forever and they've finally gone fine free. So now we're just dealing with lost item charges, which has been made it a lot easier to handle. I know another issue that we ran into historically was like the process just wasn't smoothed out. So we would have situations where we were sending reports to Unique where like a fine got written off instead of paid, and they logged out as paid. So then they were billing us for a payment that never actually happened. So we had a lot of administrative issues because our workflows aren't as smooth as they should be. So that's something else to watch out for. Like anytime there's a difference in what you submit, they're going to register that as, oh, hey, we did our job and you got some money. And that's not always the case.
All right, we've got a little under 15 minutes to go. Any other issues that people are facing? Does Eddie? Oh, Lauren, please.
I have one. So I'm trying to clean up our item types. And I'm nearing the end. Hallelujah. But I've run into, we have about 650 records where they have different item types. And I found a report to run for records with different item types, But because I'm a consortium, I'm needing to know, like, which library is the odd man out that, you know, that's probably the wrong one. Like, because book was the default when libraries came in. And when they came in, there was no one to go in and change those. So that's usually the one that's like, okay, it's wrong. It needs to be a journal or a reprint or something else. And I'm wondering, is there a way to create a report that I can show that information? When I tried to add the library, it only shows me the first library listed, which isn't helpful. And I tried to add where I could select by a library so that, you know, library A could see all of the records that it has that have different item types attached, but it won't show it because the items in that library are the same. I'm needing it to show, you know, I have a book and another library has a continuing resource. Does anyone have any ideas on how to solve? And my level of SQL is like below very basic. So I could have been doing something like, I don't trust my reports.
So you're trying to compare what the item type is to what the other item types are on the same record. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
Okay. I could see where, yeah, because you're looking at a record and doing a comparison of that, I can see where that's where the branch is getting a little bit messy, because I think it'd be hard to write a report that it could tell you when that is mismatched. And then you might have to I would just go into the record and take a look at that record individually, because I don't think the further along you go down with that report, it's going to be hard to, I don't think the report's going to be smart enough to know who is an error. You might have to visually look at each of those records and then fix them.
Okay.
Because
Even if I could just have a list of all the items. It's like, if this record has 3 items, I have it listed 3 times with the library and item type information. Then I could kind of do a sort by library or sort by item type and figure it out.
I can tell
But
you
maybe
what
I just have to do it manually.
I
I
can
think
tell
it's
you.
doable, but I can't. I feel like I have a report for this and I can't find it, but I will dig some more for you.
Okay.
What we do for mismatches is we have a report that I call like a total inventory report, and it just has lots of information about every item, and then you can select which branch you want it at. And then what I'll do in this instance is I'll just sort it by call number. And you can and then you can filter in Excel by item type. And so you can go through and you can pretty quickly figure out what shelving locations or item types are incorrectly because they're not matching to that call number convention. So and then we just grab those barcodes and do a batch change. So that would definitely save you time to go individually to each record.
I've done that. So I'm past that step. I'm in the leftovers. Yes.
Do you set, forgive me because I'm not a cataloger, but isn't there a place in the bib record where we set like a default item type?
So you could look at the KOHA item type. That would be one place. You could also look in the leader and see what the format type is in the either in the 000 or the 008. Those would also be things where you could compare. It always gets a little tricky in KOHA when you're doing mark information, because if that field isn't mapped, you have to do like an extract out of that field because it like crams all of the mark information into a single field. And but that can get a little tricky.
So I found a report that's similar but not the same, but let me share my screen. So on this one, I'm looking at the Blu-rays versus DVDs as item types, and then I'm listing out the home branches where that's happening. So I think that this logic could work for what you need, Lauren. Because see, this record has somebody cataloged a DVD, somebody cataloged a Blu-ray, so we need to break those apart. And what that's doing is just looking at, so I'm looking at the items collection code. It sounds like you want to look at the item type in the record.
Yeah.
And then compare the
In
item
the
type
item record.
in the item record. That makes it even
Yeah,
easier.
so- Oh, good, because the
Yeah.
bib record, they're legacy records. So like there is no 942C
Okay.
Yeah.
on the
So-
majority of these to look. If there was, it would make life a whole lot easier.
So what you could do with this report is just look at the item type, count how many of each. Do you have lots of item types? I guess that'd be the only thing, because I'm
The majority that I'm finding are book, reprint, or journal.
so you
Are
could
usually
do
where they're
that as put your codes in
Okay.
here of all your possible item types, count them up,
Okay.
and then the logic down here is saying if it has at least one of each, then show me that record.
okay.
And show
Okay.
and then this group concat distinct is tell me each of the libraries involved. So it's not exactly what you're looking for, but it could work.
It's a good next step. I'm just trying to like, how can I decrease instead of having to manually look at 695 records? How can I like lower that number to like, 100 or 200 records? And I think, yes. Can you share that report?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat there for you.
Okay. Thank you. I think that will be very helpful.
So obviously you'll have to tweak it a little bit, but I think, yeah, just duplicate some of those statements so that you're covering every single one of your item types. And that should, it's a start. I feel like I have another one, but I don't. So back to reports and not letting people run reports. My strategy has always been to have way too many reports for anyone to possibly feel comfortable digging through. So they're just too many, and I struggle myself finding things I've written in the past.
At the very least, if I was tackling something like this, my first easiest approach to something like this would be, okay, just show me the shelving locations, because we expect certain formats and shelving locations, but show me the shelving locations for this location and show me the item types or the collection codes or whatever I'm trying to clean up. Show me those all those types that are in that section. And then I can just go down that list and quickly scan and see, okay, this doesn't look like it's in the right place, and then go address those. Maybe pull up another report specific to that area. But that would be the way I would initially look for those kinds of anomalies.
Yeah, I've done that for each library. Some of this is because we're a consortium and they're sharing a library. It's identifying, okay, is one of the item types wrong? And I need to email, and say, listen, I think this item type is wrong. It should be this instead of that. We did shelving location, call numbers. I did a lot of batch edits. This number was a lot larger when I started. I didn't write down that number. But I didn't realize it was a problem until about halfway through the project. And then I'm like, oh, great. But they tended to be all with continuing resources or reprints, which is why I saved them for last. But time has come to deal with them. So
Michelle,
Thank
what
you.
do you mean batch editing doesn't work in 2211?
It doesn't, yeah. I update patron records every day, and I cannot batch update patron records right now. And I sent in a ticket, and it was just like, oh yeah, that'll probably be backported in the next release. So we're like waiting until the next one to be able to batch edit patrons.
Is it just patrons?
No, it's items too, because I just got an email today from a library that wanted to update their shelving locations from new to adult, and we can't.
Well, that ain't good.
No,
Yeah, well, there'll be a lot of voices added to yours.
That is
And about
really bad.
and
I kind of thought it should be like something that was looked at like right away, but or
I
backported
expect
or
it-
something.
a fix like that will end up being in a point release, because that's, like that will kill our functionality.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
Something like that would almost make me want to say, hey, let's hold off on that upgrade until this is fixed, because that's a major component, man.
What does it do when
it says barcode, bad barcodes or something, unknown barcodes. So it can't find any, like, something to do with the barcodes and record numbers. So it can't even find the record numbers either. I think we found that in a patron list we could work with it, but that's a lot of extra work for me to have to split everything up by a patron list to be able to update one field.
So it's specifically when you're doing batch things from report results, when you press that button to put them into the batch, you can download the report and then copy the barcode numbers or the bib numbers or the item numbers into the batch tool directly, and that should still work. And it has been backported to 2211.06.
It's not. That is not,
It's not?
because what I do is I have two screens open, and so I run the report, and I'll have all the self-registration patrons, and so they all come over with online as their home library, and then I go in and manually change those libraries. We can't. So what I do is I copy those barcodes, and then I paste them into the next screen into the borrowers list, and then I click submit, and that doesn't work either. So
Will you upload that or update that ticket and say that? Because the bug that's associated with the patron one, at least, is just saying that it's only a problem when you're doing it from the report results. So there might be a bigger bug there, or there might be something else going on that we can deal with.
Yeah, there might be something else, because I'm doing a batch change, and it seems to be working by copying and pasting barcodes.
it wasn't the other day, so maybe something has changed since then when I first reported it, because that's what I do. I have two screens open and
Now, I've got this in test. I'm not doing it in production, but in test, I was just able to do a batch change. So
Can you confirm your version, Michelle?
I'll look at mine as well. We're on 22.11.05 in our test server.
221105. Yep. 000.
Okay, yeah, so you might have something else weird going on that's unique to you.
That's probably possible. A whole bunch of stuff that we had customized is broken.
Customized, yeah, that's probably what's going on. We run into that when we get stuff early. Because we've got some customizations. It's not in the code base yet because it's a future release, but we want it now. Often leads to issues when we do an upgrade until it's actually all intermeshed the way it's supposed to be in the proper release later on.
All right, so yeah, that is probably some sort of customization issue. So I will update the ticket. Thanks.
Well, we are at time. I want to thank everybody for a great discussion and bringing lots of good ideas. If you look at Christopher's background, it says explore the possibilities. That is our conference that is upcoming. We have And if I were efficient, I would already have the link available, but program submissions are being taken now. We hope to see your ideas for sessions at the conference and to see you there. So I can look for that link. Yeah, I was should have thought of that before I started talking.
It's there.
Okay, good. So far, we have a total of 4 responses, 2 people in this room. So we're looking for some more. But it'll be a good conference, and Portsmouth looks like an awesome place. So can't wait to be there in the fall. All right.
And Bob,
Yeah.
on my submission, I signed it up as it could be a work session, but it also could, in some ways it could be I present in the main one and then I do an actual how-to on what I presented, but I didn't know how to do that in the form, but.
Okay, cool. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it and figure that out. Our next meeting, we do this every other month, so our next meeting will not be in June, but July 27th is the next one. So talk to you all then. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.